Okay, we're here to talk about productivity, toxic productivity, how productivity, how our productivity is influenced by our society. First, I want to say that our idea of productivity is all wrong. This toxic productivity that we currently live in is not sustainable for us. A lot of us feel the need to constantly be productive. It may seem like there's not enough time in the day and that we always need to be doing something in order to keep up with our fast-paced lifestyles. Oftentimes we feel that if we take breaks, we're not going to be able to reach the goals that we have for ourselves. I like to think of us as hamsters on a wheel. We're constantly moving, but we're never getting any further. We're staying in the same spot, just spinning on this wheel, but not getting anywhere different, not reaching new goals. The pressure to be productive causes us to push ourselves to a point of burnout. And then at that point, we start to feel a lack of energy and motivation to do these things. We're not able to perform to the best of our abilities, and this ultimately hurts our progress moving forward as human beings. This can lead us to feeling like we're not working hard enough, but I'm here to question why we feel the need to work at this rate. Why do we feel the need to participate in toxic productivity and burnout culture? What if taking the time to recenter and focus on our goals actually propels us forward in what we want to achieve? The concept of putting your mental and physical health above everything, capitalism, our own egos, other people. If we move at a slower pace while being more aware and non-judgmental of ourselves, we're able to make better decisions when it comes to what is best for us. I'm not sure most people know the extent to which productivity is influenced by society, and I still don't think I'm fully aware of it. I'm sure many people do this, and I am guilty of it as well. We tell ourselves we're going to relax and automatically fill the space with scrolling on social media or watching Netflix or something that numbs our brain. We're not used to being bored because society shows us to fill time and space with this meaningless noise. When was the last time you were in a quiet place and not distracted by something? It seems like every store or restaurant that you walk into has music playing. This is already overstimulating for us, but it also causes people to talk louder, which creates even more noise. It feels like we have to compete with the noise to even hear our own thoughts. Do you ever wonder why you're forced to view so many ads when using your devices? Our capitalistic society thrives on us feeling like there's always something that we need. Rather than sitting with our own thoughts, we're thinking about other people's lives and seeing where ours compares. We're shown beautiful people who have nice things, and this convinces us that we also need those things in order to feel happy. These big companies will keep making more money as long as we are insecure and feel like we need products or things in order to fit society standards. Which, might I add, is concerning the way that social media and capitalism work so well together. Social media makes you insecure, and then capitalism profits off those insecurities. It's like when you have an ad for a beauty product or some sort of item that will help you, we feel like we need that thing in order to be productive instead of finding it within ourselves. We think we need to find it outside of ourselves, which I think is where we kind of get messed up with it. We're also forced to hear news from all over the world. We're forced to hear why the next star was canceled. We're forced to see messages on our devices about work even after we clock out. Through our devices, we're able to receive so much more information than we were before, whether we want to or not. So it makes sense that we feel overwhelmed by just existing. I think a lot of people feel this way, and it's hard to separate our own ideas from the ones put on us by family and society. And it's even harder to remove yourself from the effects when that is all you know. We've grown up in this society thinking that this is the only way to function. It's like any thoughts or beliefs that your family has taught you, you move through your life thinking that that is like the right way to think, or thinking that this will be best for me. When in reality, some of these thoughts and beliefs can actually be hindering you in moving forward and making progress and growing as a person. Even as children, we are taught that getting good grades and being book smart makes you better than other people. Even before social media, we're taught to compare ourselves to peers in school. Even in high school, the idea of getting good grades and performing well on standardized tests gets you into college and then gets you a good job. This all seems great in theory, but once you go through the process and you graduate college and you realize that you are actually not rewarded for following the system. Come to find out, we're actually replaceable to these companies that we work for. It also makes me question if this is also capitalism at play and these big institutions make college seem necessary so that they can make money off of us. Because you see all these people like being entrepreneurs and like creating businesses and creating careers for themselves, but not having prior college experience or prior education that they had to pay for. And it makes, at least me, it makes me question, like, why was I taught that this was the only path growing up? That going to college, getting good grades, getting a degree equals getting a good job. We also think that productivity is about constantly doing something because we've been conditioned that, but that isn't necessarily true. I think people are mindlessly scrolling on their phones because it feels like we are doing something. But in reality, we're just distracting ourselves from our feelings. Being productive is giving your body and brain what it needs in order to thrive. It is having a goal and thinking about ways in order to achieve that while also keeping your body and brain healthy. I feel like this idea of toxic productivity is pushing everything else to the side and only focusing on productivity or getting things done or doing things in order to make ourselves valuable in this society, when in reality, the main valuable thing in life is being happy, being in this being. And productivity isn't exclusive to making money. Although our society tells us the more productive we are, the more money we will make. The US is set up in a way that encourages grinding so hard at our full-time jobs that we don't have the space or energy in us to question if this is actually something that we want to be doing. Does anybody else feel like there's no time to do the things you actually want to be doing? Because I think a lot of people come home from work, scroll on TikTok, eat dinner, shower, and then get ready to do that all again the next day. It seems like this cycle of only focusing on working because we think that's what makes us valuable, when in reality, it's us that makes us valuable. It's like the thoughts that we have in our brain that makes us valuable. It's how we treat people that makes us valuable. Because I've also noticed with productivity comes this idea that we don't really care about people. We, especially in workplaces, we treat people like robots. We are mad when somebody can't show up for a shift, but we're not actually thinking about why. Like, what is going on in their lives, whether it's mental health or family stuff or anything. What is the reason that they're not showing up? Oftentimes, the people who are there that are upset about it, it's not a personal thing for why that person called into work. It's a person valuing their mental health, valuing themselves over these big companies, which I think is a good thing. It seems like once you're an adult, it's too late, because then you have to keep up with rent and bills and the cost of feeding yourself. We're all consumed by making enough money in order to get our basic needs met, and because of that, we don't have time to explore the things and passions that truly make us happy. And being productive does not mean that you have a to-do list that is a page long and you're able to check every single thing on that list. It isn't micromanaging all of your time, but rather picking one or two goals and taking baby steps in order to reach that. The thing with productivity is I feel like we try to do everything at once. We try to do as much as we can in such a short amount of time, but I think the quality of how we're doing things gets worse when we do that. But if we're able to just pick a few things and really focus and put our energy into that, we will actually be able to do it well instead of spreading ourselves so thin across so many things and some things that don't benefit us or isn't something we actually want. We have this idea in our head that once we get a better job or get enough money, then we will be happy. But what is the point of life if not to make each day as enjoyable as possible? Life does not start once you reach a certain goal. Life is happening right now. Being productive can look like setting aside time to write down your thoughts and putting effort into knowing yourself better. It can look like setting a goal to genuinely connect with more people throughout your day. It can look like making a meal for yourself that you love. It can be listening to guided meditation. Productivity can even look like sitting in silence and doing nothing. Capitalism teaches us to believe that we're not productive unless we're only thinking about work and making money. But this doesn't mean that we have to believe that is the only definition of productivity that there is. We have the freedom to not believe everything this society is built on. We have the right to question why things are the way they are. We as a generation have to push thoughts and ideas that will guide our lives in a positive direction. Because so far, just following societal standards and expectations hasn't brought a lot of good. At least in my life, it makes you feel like you have to fit into this box in order to function in this society. And I don't think that's necessarily true. Okay, so to take all of the things that are wrong in society just leaves it on a very heavy, defeated point of view. So I'm going to give you some healthy tips for productivity, and this is just from my experience, but I think it could benefit a lot of people to take a step back from this cycle that we're just living in. So the first tip that I have for healthy productivity is to put your phone down and search for quiet moments. And I know a lot of this discussion can be surrounded by social media, and I think social media does have a big influence on us, and it's easy to get sucked into it because these companies that created social media are also capitalistic. Except instead of like spending money on a product, you're spending your time in their apps. You're getting lost in their apps. You're seeing their ads. You're seeing what they want to push to you. Okay, so let's address the fact that eliminating social media altogether is not completely necessary for everyone, but it is helpful for some people. Oftentimes, I feel like we live through other people and their content rather than just living and enjoying our own lives. So I am suggesting that we consume less content so there will be less comparison in our lives. Most of the time, the content people post isn't even their real lives. It is an aesthetic, cute version of what actually happens. If we're able to separate ourselves from our devices, we will be less likely to feed into the negative thoughts and comparison that comes from social media. And this comparison might not even be on a conscious level for a lot of people. Some of us may even watch content to distract ourselves from our own lives. I've been seeing a lot of people doing dopamine detoxes where they avoid social media for the first hour of their day. This could also look like unfollowing accounts that you often compare yourself to. Next time you find yourself scrolling through social media for a little too long, try putting your phone down and breaking this endless cycle. Allow there to be space to address how you feel rather than scrolling to avoid your thoughts or feelings. And I don't think this necessarily is just social media that we have to worry about. I think we need to remove ourselves from a lot of situations that require our attention. This doesn't necessarily have to be specifically social media that you're like taking time away from. It's just anything that you do in your life that takes away from the moments of quiet that you can actually focus on yourself and ask yourself what you want. Because if we're constantly being stimulated by all this stuff, like telling us what we should want or how we should feel, even people, even relationships, like we have people wanting things from us. Like everybody has wants and needs. But sometimes codependency in relationships can even take away from the personal time that is needed in order to do better for yourselves. And this brings me to my next healthy tip of productivity: carving out time to explore your thoughts and feelings, especially when it's hard. If we're constantly overwhelmed and distracted by this society, it makes it really easy to avoid our true thoughts and feelings. As someone who is an avoidant personality, from the outside, it may seem like this sounds like a nice thing to be able to push these intense thoughts and feelings to the back of our minds. But over time, doing that results in things like burnout, negative self-talk, increase in mental health issues, and just not living as our true selves. Now, this leads me into the concept of shadow work. The definition of shadow work is tapping into your unconscious mind in order to uncover the parts of ourselves that we repress or hide. This is something I have learned about in the past year, and let me tell you, it is not easy. But once you start doing it, it becomes easier. As someone who has an avoidant personality type, my automatic reaction is to suppress my emotions and push them further into my subconscious so I don't have to feel the uncomfortable feelings that come with it. Also, as a recovering people pleaser, I never really lived my life authentically because I was conforming to what I thought people wanted me to be. But through shadow work, I have not only been able to be more understanding towards myself, but everybody around me as well. Overall, I think shadow work has brought me a sense of peace and clarity that I didn't experience before. In order to do this shadow work, we need to eliminate the distractions that take us away from our true thoughts and feelings. So it might be social media or taking space from relationships that are asking too much of us. It's doing this so that we can actually create the space to question what is going on in our brain. Because if we take everything society and people in our life say at face value, we believe that is the only way to function. We think that we have to fit in order to progress. But really, the progress comes from looking within and asking ourselves, is this something that I truly want? Or is this just something that I've been told I need to believe? And shadow work can obviously go a lot deeper than I'm touching on. I'm just very lightly touching on the concept of shadow work. If you want to learn more about it, look up some YouTube videos about how to do shadow work. I think it's different for everybody, so there's not necessarily one way of doing it. It's just looking internally and sitting with yourself and sitting with the uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. That's why it's not easy, is because they're the feelings that you're pushing down. So to call on them and bring them up to the surface, a lot of the times it can bring up negative emotions for people. And it's so uncomfortable that you would rather just scroll on TikTok and ignore the feeling rather than addressing what it actually is. Going along with shadow work, my next healthy tip is have compassion for yourself and others. It can be easy for us to just believe the negative self-talk that goes on in our minds, when in reality, this is just prior experiences that have shaped how we view ourselves in the world. Let me remind you, this does not make those thoughts true. I feel like I'm blanking on any negative self-talk that I've had, maybe because I don't want to bring it up. I guess in the context of work, it's me always showing up, always being there, even if it's at the expense of my mental health, because I don't want people to view me negatively. Because I'm sure everybody has experienced this at work. If somebody calls in, there might be some shit talking. There might be oh, why is this person late? Oh, why is this person calling in? I'm here every day. Why can't this person be here every day? And I think hearing that from other people makes me feel like I'm not able to do that. I'm not able to call in when I need a mental health day. Thinking about other people's thoughts and feelings too much leads you to conform to them. Yeah, instead of putting my mental health first, I'm valuing what people think of me over that. When in reality, people's thoughts and opinions do not define who you are. Even if somebody has a negative opinion about you, that doesn't make you that thing. It doesn't mean that thing is true about you. By being compassionate with ourselves and listening to what our emotions are trying to tell us, we learn to accept ourselves. It is often the traits we don't accept and repress in ourselves that we dislike in other people. So for me, being an avoidant personality type, when people would show a lot of emotion, it would kind of trigger something inside of me because I have always repressed the emotion. So seeing somebody like be emotional, I think made me upset because I didn't let myself be emotional. I didn't let myself experience those emotions because I thought in order to function in this society, you kind of just have to push your feelings to the side and ignore them. And through shadow work, I've actually come to love that about people. I've come to really appreciate when somebody is able to show their emotions or act in a way that might not necessarily be what society wants, but it is them being authentically themselves. And I think it's, especially with social media and all this stuff, it's hard to like see authentic people. It's hard to connect with authentic people because everybody is like trying to hide something about themselves that isn't viewed as like a good thing. But in reality, like it is such a good thing. If you're able to have compassion towards yourself and others, it lets you view life through a positive lens. This doesn't mean that life becomes rainbows and sunshines, but it beats out living life through the lens of your negative self-talk. This allows us to feel less attached to the negative thoughts that have previously controlled us. But we have to set aside time to actually look inward and explore God damn. See, like, you can see me reading off of this screen because this is stuff I've typed out and I feel like I can't get my point across just having bullet points. Obviously, that's something we're going to work on, and this is just the first one, so eventually we will get there. But that's why we're reading off the screen, because these are my thoughts. I just feel like I'm not able to process them on the spot, you know? But we have to set aside time to actually look inward and explore our authentic wants and needs. Doing this sets us up for productivity because it allows us to focus on the things that really matter. So instead of being productive in a way that society wants us to by always showing up to work, always giving it 110%, or even, like doing more than we need to do, taking on more responsibilities. Instead, we're able to ask ourselves what we want and then create goals to be productive for ourselves, not for society, because obviously society does not want what's best for us. Capitalism does not want what's best for us. They do not view us as like real human beings with real human being emotions. They view us as robots to do their dirty work to keep their companies like functioning. They don't care that more stress is put on you as an employee because they're more worried about making profits. They're more worried about like keeping this business running. But by having compassion for ourselves and others, we're able to be less attached to people's opinions of us, even our own opinion of us, like that negative self-talk. We do not have to validate that because it isn't valid most of the time. It's just what our brain is telling us. And the fact that we just believe that negative self-talk to be true, I think is where we fail. It's where we turn the wrong direction because just because we think that does not make that true about ourselves. And I think the same goes with other people as well. Like when people get upset that other employees call out of work, if we're able to actually have compassion towards them, it creates a better relationship with people. It allows there to be space for other people to like show their not so great emotions or show their struggles and be accepted for their struggles. Instead of like somebody having something hard going on and then people at work not even accepting that, like not even being compassionate towards them and understanding that things can happen, and it doesn't make them a bad person, it doesn't make them a bad worker, just because they can't perform to what society wants them to. Okay, so moving on to the last healthy productivity tip that I have. It is being able to set boundaries when it comes to work and life, and learning what your body thrives with. In order to be productive, we need to be able to set boundaries in work and life. Now, as someone who doesn't like conflict, this is something that I'm actively working on too. And I know some people throw around the word boundary, and some people use it to manipulate others. For the sake of this conversation, let's assume you've done some inward work and realize you need to make a change in your life. I know it is not easy to set a boundary because there can be negative responses from other people. And as a people pleaser, we try to avoid other people viewing us in a negative light. But sometimes we have to sit through the uncomfortableness of that in order to give our words. Why can't I talk? This is wild. Okay. Sometimes we have to sit through the uncomfortableness of that in order to give ourselves what we truly need. Because we all deserve to be treated with compassion. Now you can set a boundary in many situations. Maybe you need to ask for less hours at work because you're feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you have to say no to a partner or friend when they ask you for a favor because you're not in the mental space for that at the moment. Maybe you need to find a different job. Maybe you need to put distance in your relationship with a family member. By setting these boundaries, we're allowing ourselves time to relax and create space for our wants and needs. If we're able to find better balance in life, then we will be able to move through our experiences with more motivation. Yeah, so that is my thoughts on productivity and toxic productivity and the way our society influences our productivity. And I think sometimes we need to question what society is telling us, because it doesn't always benefit us. Like the way the world is right now, there's a lot of bad shit. Like a lot of stuff that makes me so sad to see. And I want everybody to be able to be compassionate towards each other and live an authentic life instead of living a life that we feel we have to, because that's what society is telling us to do. Yeah, so those are my thoughts. If you have any suggestions for like future topics I could cover, I would be more than willing to be productive and put some effort into laying out my thoughts. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any opinions, leave them down below. And let's all be compassionate towards each other. Let's be accepting. Let's be understanding. If we want people to treat us in a positive way, we also need to be able to do that for other people. Anyways, that wraps up the talk on toxic productivity in our society. And it really comes down to inward work and doing what's best for us and detaching from the thoughts and opinions of other people and society as a whole. So go out there, do some shadow work, and be productive in your own way. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day. Have a good night. Have a good week. You got this shit. You can do it. Okay. Bye.